Archaea
They're free-living.
are single-celled organisms with an infinite number of implications for the study of evolutionary processes.
I saw an issue of Science that talked about Carl Woese and the 3 domains of life, the archaea, bacteria, and eukaryotes, and specifically said that the archaea are like eukaryotes, and my world was changed at that moment.
For Professor Rachel Whitaker, life in every sense is about evolution.
I thought, how can I not study this? It's fascinating, it's so important. I'm so excited and interested in a 3rd domain of life.
It's a concept that's taken her from the hills of the Pacific Northwest to the fields of the Midwest, from a kindergarten classroom to the storied halls of Illinois' Institute for Genomic Biology, and from the study of archaea to the real-world implications of health equity. In Whitaker's life, her passions evolved into 2 domains.
One is about education and equity, and the other one is about microbiology or biology in general. And those 2 things don't come together very often. So my path has been kind of going back and forth between those things.
After studying biology in college, Whitaker taught reading to kindergartners and 1st and 2nd graders in Portland, Oregon as a VISTA volunteer.
And I was really interested in what giving people an equal opportunity in life, and the early reading is one of the big things, and so that's what I did for 3 years and really enjoyed that, but felt like I was missing the biology part. So then I went back to work in a cancer research lab in cancer immunology, where I found out that I really loved working in the lab, but I didn't really want to work in cancer immunology.
Whitaker spent her free time at the library, reading science journals that asked questions about life's biggest mysteries, and found herself drawn to the same mysteries Woese was trying to answer.
Evolution and microbiology became the central thing that I wanted to study.
After a postdoc at Berkeley doing environmental microbiology with Professor Jill Banfield, the Department of Microbiology in the School of MCB hired Whitaker. She later joined the new Institute of Genomic Biology.
So I got to come here, work with Carl Woese when he was alive, be in the microbiology department in MCB where the archaea were discovered. And scientifically, I was really excited about the fact that being in an MCB, being in the microbiology department, it would be a way of putting together molecular mechanisms with evolutionary principles, and this is kind of the only place to do that.
Whitaker's research at Illinois has taken her from the hot springs of Yellowstone National Park to the lab, where she and her team explore virus-host interactions and their impact on the evolution of archaea, microbes, and bacteria.
One of the things that really comes out as important and unifying across these different systems is that context matters. The context in which you're evolving matters.
One of the biggest problems facing the world today is antibiotic resistance. And when it comes to the context here in central Illinois,
one of the big questions was whether that antibiotic resistance is evolving in the agricultural sphere and moving into the human sphere, or whether the human sphere is evolving resistance going into the animal sphere. How does antibiotics evolve and move in microbial systems? So that was something that our new theme set out to approach.
They studied the differences in responses between humans and pigs, 2 vastly different microbiomes. But then
the pandemic hit, and all of my research really kind of went on hold to try to address what I could do to try to help respond to the pandemic. And because I'd been working a little bit with pigs, we were called in to think about how the farm worker outbreak might be something that we should look at.
The coronavirus began ripping through a Rantoul pork processing plant and the surrounding community.
It was our first outbreak in Champaign-Urbana.
Along with a team of other biologists and engineers at the U of I, Whitaker began sampling the air for evidence of the virus transmitting in the plant. They instead found evidence of it being passed along human to human.
So that started a whole other piece of work, which was looking at the healthcare system and trying to get testing to the people who are working in the pork processing plant, which turned out to be really, really hard to do.
Their efforts evolved into the Labor Health Equity Action Project. Whitaker, anthropologists, and other community leaders set up multiple testing clinics in Rantoul, where participants also donated blood and saliva samples for testing and answered surveys about living and working conditions associated with higher rates of infectious disease.
That had a really big impact on me and my science, starting to think about that's the context, but we're studying everything from our academic context. And if we're going to really understand how something like COVID evolves or antibiotic resistance, we're going to need to look at it in the human context. And that human context has to include social-cultural, all different types of economic status, all different types of aspects of human biology.
And that's where her evolution has come full circle.
And so that let me kind of come back to thinking about equity issues and health and how the science that we do needs to be done in a way that applies to the real world.
Whitaker is still working on molecular mechanisms and understanding of bacteria.
But it has a real world applied consequence that this evolutionary theory can be applied to. And so that's kind of where my work is going now.
Whitaker is quick to point out that her students drive many of the lab's activities, be it in research or outreach. For example, Cena y Ciencias, a science outreach program in Spanish for dual language students, was created by one of her Spanish-speaking students. Students also volunteer with Project Microbe. Developed by Whitaker and education professor Barbara Hug, Project Microbe weaves the topics of microbes into high school and middle school level classrooms. In recent years, Whitaker and several colleagues launched Genomics and Ecoevolution in Multiscale Symbiosis, or GEMS, a biology integration institute funded by the National Science Foundation. GEMS brings together more than 24 scientists at multiple institutions who are addressing the fundamental question: how do symbioses unify biology from molecule to ecosystem? Meantime, her research in evolution and how the archaea domain evolves continues to advance, and she remains involved in IGB's Infection Genomics for One Health Beat, a cross-disciplinary collaboration in which faculty and students explore the complex connections between human, animal, and environmental health. As Whitaker says, truly interdisciplinary and engaged scholarship is necessary to create a resilient society that can respond quickly to global challenges.